Everyone. We'll go ahead and start with the update from campuses and the sound check to make sure everybody can hear us. So downtown.
Okay. Don't even worry about it. No, nothing.
We can hear you, Brenda.
No,
thank you.
I don't worry about it.
And then Heidi, I think you're representing Polly.
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. And then everybody here at Tempe can hear me. Okay, and then Martin at West.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear us?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much. Okay, so I would now call the meeting to order. And welcome to our 8th and final Senate meeting of the academic year 2015-2016. Again, I'm Dr. Brenda Hoseley, University Senate President and Chair of the University Academic Council for only a short amount of time. And so now we'll move forward with our health quiz and our quorum calculation. Okay, now let's see what you all know. And so according to the Centers for Disease Control, which of the following is the most common sexually transmitted infection? A, chlamydia, B, gonorrhea, C, the human papilloma virus, or D, the human immunodeficiency virus. So bring out your clickers and let's see how well you do. So I get to finish my Senate presidency with a question that brings a lot of discussion. So Okay, can we call for the vote? Wow, people actually got this question correct. It is the, all right. Even the president, yay. So it is the human papilloma virus, and the reason that I posted this question is that some of the UAC members asked that we do something about sexually transmitted diseases, and I corrected them. It's no longer sexually transmitted diseases, it's sexually transmitted infections. So they changed the term several years ago to have a broader context because it's more than just diseases. And this is also our sexual awareness assault month, and so I wanted to make sure that we had something out there that addressed that. So we have just a couple of housekeeping items regarding the technology. If we lose video with the other campuses but maintain audio, the meeting will continue. If we lose audio, we'll take a 10-minute recess to see if audio can be restored. If not restored after 10 minutes, the meeting is adjourned. So nobody pull the plug anywhere. Okay, so now I'd like to ask President Crow to come forward and to give his remarks.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I thought I would focus on two things today. One, just a handful of news items, and then secondly, a discussion about an item that the Senate has been considering, which is the university-level promotion and tenure review process. And so I thought I'd spend a little bit of time talking about that from the context of the university itself. So first, on the news front, steady progress on all of our indicators. Our indicators are obviously retention, enrollment, research funding, fundraising, academic performance, student performance. We have not announced this yet, but we will be announcing soon that one of our students just won one of the most fantastic scholarships imaginable, and so you'll be hearing about that shortly. And so it's a wonderful success for our student body. Fantastic achievements by student and faculty in terms of awards, funding, everything. I mean, we're operating at a level. This is something that, you know, being the old party school that some people view us as, it's they'll often say, when I say how well we're doing in these kinds of categories, they'll say, what school are you talking about again? Arizona State, really? And so, really? And so I don't think there's an indicator of student or faculty success that we're not in the top handful of schools in whatever those happen to be, and so we're very excited about that. The Board of Regents at its most recent meeting did accept our tuition proposal. We will be increasing net tuition. We're doing it in a somewhat maneuvered kind of way. We're reducing the fee, which was what we called the surcharge that we put on last year, $350. We're reducing that by $50 in recognition of the fact that the governor, in a very positive turn of events, has accepted our basic funding model for the university, which is to work toward funding all Arizona residents at 1/2 of the cost of instruction, approximately $7,500 per student. We're nowhere near that yet, and that's a fraction of what the previous investment was, but we are operating in such a different and more efficient mode than we were in the past that I think that we will do very well when we achieve that number. And then we increased tuition for in-state students about 1.5%, and so it balances out to a very modest tuition increase for our in-state students. We increased out-of-state student tuition and international student tuition by a fraction of what we did last year. Our logic, or our theory, for in-state students, and this is really important for faculty to remember, our logic and our theory for in-state students is to keep the cost of instruction as low as we possibly can. That's what tuition payments are for, the cost of instruction. These are literal terms. They are legal terms also in the Constitution of the state. The Supreme Court has weighed in more than once on matters related to tuition. They consider it to be a politically derived calculation, not a judicial decision-making arena, so they've begged off and actually haven't weighed in on it. And that's worth noting also. And so in that process, we operate with the desire to keep our in-state tuition as low as possible, and then our average tuition paid after grants for in-state students even lower. So our average tuition paid by our in-state undergraduates remains under $4,000 per year. Now, we do this at great financial stress within the institution. Just to remind everyone of that there is no state-based financial aid here to speak of. In our total financial aid expenditures, grants and loans spent by students at ASU, the state financial aid fund that is available contributes 0.1%, approximately. So less than 1%, think of it that way. And so the university contributes more than $300 million a year of our own resources on financial aid. Now, we are reaching a point where we're still able to make all of that work, but we're reaching a point where there may be some changes in our policies that will not affect need-based financial aid recipients, but we may have changes in our policies going forward relative to merit-based financial aid. And so that's something that we're looking at right now. It's just we can only afford to do so much. And so we end up, for high-achieving, high-income students, paying most of their cost of attendance for high-achieving, high-income students. And so we're like, well, maybe if we paid a lot of their cost of attendance, but not most of their cost of attendance, it would still work out in a way where we could afford other things within the institution also. The governor's budget request is still streaming its way through the legislature, and just to remind everyone, that budget request is built on a model, as I suggested, different than all previous models. It's built on a simple in-state student enrollment model and a simple in-state student support model, graduate and undergraduate students. We have, give or take, 51,000 in-state students attending ASU. Those 51,000 students, just to reiterate one of the financial complexities we have in the running of the institution, those 51,000 students result in a net negative operating balance after we consider all of their tuition payment, every single penny, and all state appropriations being applied only to them, imagine that, $155 million net negative operating costs. So we make up that net negative operating costs by out-of-state students. Now, this is not unusual. There's nothing foreign about this process. International students, cost efficiencies, all kinds of things that we are able to do. But it's important to note that we're trying to get back to a balanced position with that number. And so that's where we're working toward. So that's the news and the updates that I think this group might be interested in. Turning to promotion and tenure, I've had a few email back and forths with the Senate and the Senate leadership, and the provost and I have discussed this on several occasions. And I just want to back up a little bit and just sort of remind everyone the what I call the authority chain of the institution. So the tenure granting entity within the institution is called the Arizona Board of Regents. They're the tenure granting authority. That authority, by vote and assignment to an appointed individual, is transferred to the one individual in the institution that they appoint, and that would be the president of the institution. That authority is then shared with the faculty in a process of, in a sense, advice and consent at all levels of the institution. The academic unit, the academic college or colleges, if the person is appointed across a spectrum of areas, and then ultimately also the head of the department or the school, the head of the college, and then ultimately at the last stage of faculty input, we have a university-wide committee made up of 20 to 25 senior distinguished faculty members of the institution who receive a charge from me and the provost, and who are staffed by the vice provost and others on it. Some of you, how many of you have been on the University Promotion and Tenure Committee? I don't see. I see one hand back there. Anybody else around? Maybe somewhere else? So we have one person that's been through the process. It's arduous. It's a process that requires, it's not for the faint of heart, but you do get a cross-section of reviews. And when things come to the University Promotion and Tenure Committee, they have access to the external reviews. They have access to some of the work of the faculty member. And it's the one time where you get the broadest review from the university community about what does it mean to be a tenured associate professor at the institution, or what does it mean to be promoted to full professor at the institution. At the institution that I came from, Columbia University, ran a process that was very different at the university level. It was called the ad hoc process. The provost of the institution, and sometimes myself as the deputy provost, basically managed a process in which every single tenure case was reviewed with a separate committee at the university level. Above the department, no case at the department level, just to be clear, was forwarded if it didn't get past the department, period. There was no consideration. No case was made above the school if it didn't make it above the school, going on its way to the ad hoc process. In the ad hoc process, the chair of the department was basically advocate. The committee, which included internal faculty from all through the university and external faculty from other universities, sat at the table. The provost's office managed the process, and the advocate made the case for the candidate. And that process started with the department level, and by the time tenure was granted, the statistics were that 1 person in 12 made it through the entire process. 1 person in 12. And so that was the process that I was familiar with for a very long time, and the process that I went through also. And so I'm not suggesting that it's right or fair or just. I'm just suggesting that there's different ways that universities handle this process. I happen to like the notion of specific cross-cutting all university committees being able to weigh in on a candidate, not so much because they have expertise in the candidate's particular area of work, but because they bring the voice of the broader faculty to the table. It has been my experience, and perhaps the experience of some of you, that there are sometimes idiosyncratic interactions at the unit level. Occasionally there are rivalrous interactions at the college level. And then how does one consider those things as one's going forward in trying to make certain that the faculty of Arizona State University are advising the provost and the president, because we're the final two steps of the process before an actual formal process of telling the board who we are tenuring. And in that particular case, what I like about that particular last step of the process is that it allows us to have the broadest perspective possible of the faculty's overall input and wisdom. None of these processes are perfect. All of these processes are imperfect, which is why having multiple levels to the process and multiple layers to the process allows us to be able to have the best perspective that we can on the candidates that we ultimately consider. Deb, how many did we consider this year? 77 this year. Last year, do you remember the number, Barry? So let's say 70s to low 100s per year, and the University and Promotion and Tenure Committee considers all of them and looks at all of them. And so it's an arduous process for them. I think they hopefully learn things about the university as a part of that process. They become engaged in that process. And I will say that their input to us is very valuable. Most often, there's consensus at all levels, negative or positive. Occasionally, there isn't consensus at all levels. I don't remember the exact percentages, but it's occasionally. And then on those levels, the provost and I then, and staff and other members of the faculty who are in the provost's office, we then look at those particular cases personally and interact. We look at all the cases, but we then focus time and energy on why are some of these cases having different outcomes in the review process. I will say that we do occasionally ask for additional information. We sometimes meet with the deans and the chairs of particular faculty candidates and then get and collect more information, have more interaction. Our job is somewhat more exciting than the job at Columbia, or at least the way that it worked out. Our job is to find great talent, recognize that great talent, and move them forward. And for us, that's generally what happens. We have great hiring. We have excellent mentoring and so forth. And so the process is what it is. I'd be happy to, Brenda, is there anything else you want me to address in these comments? Okay. So I'd be happy to answer any questions either about the information items or news items that I had, or anything about the promotion and tenure process. Now, on the promotion and tenure process, I think that, obviously we're open to whatever input people would like to offer in terms of always finding ways to tweak that process, enhance that process. I will say one comment about the external reviews. We've asked chairs to pursue external reviews from critical reviewers who are capable of understanding the work of the faculty member being considered, from institutions that have high-achieving records and from individuals who have high-achieving records themselves. That is, we want, it's like if you're judging something, you better be capable of making a judgment. And so we do have the resumes of all of the outside reviewers. We look at those. We look at the achievements of those people, and when 4 or 5 or 6 or sometimes more individuals make their reviews and make their assessments, I know I pay very close attention to those because I want to know, what do other people think about this person's work. I was reading one not too long ago, which was a multi-level 5-page analysis of this particular faculty member's work in a really exotic area of language that was really fantastic to read. It was like, wow, I mean, this is a deep analysis of this faculty member's contribution by a person capable of making that analysis. And so it was very valuable to me. So, questions?
If you be sure and state your name and what college you're from.
Hi, President Crow.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jackie Wheeler from the English Department at Tempe, and I have a question on another matter from
Right.
one of my instructor colleagues.
Okay.
And he writes, this is brief. I live on the Polytechnic campus in the old Air Force housing that they rent out to students and staff with families. Frankly, I can't really afford to live anywhere else given the size of my family. However, I've just been informed by the director over housing at Poly that in about 2 weeks' time, they're going to announce that all faculty and staff that live in Poly housing will be forced to move out in May 2017. While, of course, ASU has no obligation to house faculty and staff, given the low pay of many of these staff members and instructional faculty, it's been a significant benefit for them. So the question is this eviction a done deal? And why is it occurring? And will there be any relocation help offered to some of these families?
So, Mark, do we have instructors in the English department? No, I know that, but I'm saying literally, so an instructor means a full-time employee, always a full-time employee? No, I know. This is more of what I'm after now is we have 5 or 6 types of faculty members, and so so we have tenure and tenure track faculty members. We have lecturers at various ranks, clinical instructors, faculty associates, research faculty, professors of practice, adjunct faculty, and so forth. Some are employees, some are not employees. So I don't know anything about what this person is saying in terms of quote-unquote eviction. It may be that these properties are targeted for demolition. It may be that something else is going on, so we'll just have to look into it. I'm certainly happy to see none of our assets go to waste. That is, if we have property that's available and people can use it, then we should use it. And so we have to find out who this is and what the situation is and what the dynamics are. I don't know what the rules of engagement are relative to the loans that were secured by the university to refinance those properties, or the rules and conditions and the covenants under which those properties were acquired. And there may have been a condition that says something like staff can only live for so long or something. I don't know. We'd have to look at that. We have had some issues in those properties related to community college students that live there also, and there's been issues about whether or not they were really students or not students, and that's led to some other points, and so we'll have to take a look at that. Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up, and we'll see what that issue is.
I'm Stefania Traconia from the School of Math and Statistical Sciences. I have a question about the University P&T Committee. How frequently does the committee recommend the reversal, whether positive or negative, of the recommendations from the Dean's College or whatever lower level P&T committee that looked at the cases? How frequently? How often?
How frequently? Deb, what's the number? How often does the University P&T have a vote different than the there? 15% of the time. Now, you got multiple levels. So you have the department, the school, the director of the school or the chair of the department, the college, the dean. So that's 4 reviews. And then the university promotion and tenure committee, that's 5. Then the provost, 6, and then the president, 7.
Well, how about both? I mean, what if it had been positive up to the university level, and then at that point it becomes negative? What would be the percentage for that?
That would be almost never.
So 15% would be when it's mixed at the lower levels, and then.
Right.
So that does happen.
And that doesn't mean that's the final outcome. So the university promotion and tenure committee is not the final say. It's the final advice.
To Ivor?
No, to the provost and then to me.
Okay.
So it's as if there are 5 inputs. The department faculty,
And they all have the same weight?
There are 5 separate processes, and the provost can weigh them however he wishes, and I can weigh them in whatever way I wish to. I weigh them the same.
Okay, so my second question is, we got a report from the Student Faculty Policy Committee. They kind of compare with other Pac-12 universities, how it works over there. And they said that most of them have had university P&T committees with similar functions. But I wanted to know more specifics about what similar means. Because, I mean, my understanding is that here the university P&T committee actually delves into every specific case and looks at all the nuts and bolts of the case. Whether maybe in other universities they just make sure that policies and procedures are being followed.
So we have another committee that does that. There's a post-review committee if a person's not happy with the outcome. Deb, would you like to come up and explain the final stage of the committee? Vice Provost Clark can talk about the University Promotion and Tenure Committee, which does consider all of the information. So just describe how that committee works.
How the University P&T
Yes.
Committee works? Yeah, we do look at every individual case. We look at them very carefully. I can't say specifically what happens at other universities for their P&T committees. If someone is unhappy with the outcome, they are entitled to come in, and regardless of whether they're happy or unhappy, they're entitled to come in and read their file. That's pretty much.
They can appeal.
Yeah, there is an option to appeal on procedural grounds, on grounds of discrimination, on academic freedom grounds. And that goes through the Senate. That goes through CAFT.
So that's if someone feels there was a procedural error or somehow there was an error made at the department level or the college level or the university level or the provost level or the president's level, they could then say, I'd like that to be considered, and then there's a special meeting of that committee, which has met from time to time to consider such cases, and then they make a ruling, which is then a recommendation back to the president about whether or not they think there should be a reconsideration or not. Would you like to comment on that?
So if the person files a grievance, it goes through the governance grievance clearinghouse, and then if they decide that it needs to move forward because there was something that was amiss, then it goes to CAFT, and then CAFT will hold a pre-hearing, and then based on the results of the pre-hearing, whether it goes to a full hearing, and if it needs to be reconsidered, to be sent back to the provost and the president's office for reconsideration. But again, that's not a reversal. It's just that there was some procedural error or there was some error, and then it goes back to their offices.
And what I can say is that some of those recommendations have been accepted, and some of those recommendations have not been accepted.
We've certainly done one of those this year.
Yeah.
And it's actually the Personnel Committee that looked at that, not the Student Faculty and Policy Committee.
Of this body.
Yes, of the Senate that looked at that. So, any questions for Dr. Crow?
I don't know if people can
Yeah.
hear you.
Okay. So we'll hear this comment, and then we'll see if any other questions from the other campuses.
Yes, just a quick comment. It was our committee that looked at this. We went to all Pac-12 universities, the other 11, and we asked them for their policies and procedures. Sometimes they were able to go ahead and just put us into the website, whatever. Other times we had discussions with them. In general, while there are nuances among each of them, only the University of Washington does not have a high-level committee working with the provost and president. All of the rest of them do. One school, and I don't remember who it is right now, had a process similar to what Michael was talking about a few minutes ago, where a small group of elite faculty, distinguished faculty, worked directly with the president in making the decision. And it looks like it is a combined decision with the president and the small elite community. Then all the rest of them had
probably Stanford.
Pardon me? It was one of the privates, and I don't know. And then everybody else had processes that were multi-tiered that involved all 3 levels. And sometimes the chairs in department would only give one recommendation, but there would always be a recommendation at a unit level, at a college level, if there is a college at that level, and then something above that that would report directly with the provost. And it was just, yes. And again, each one of them are relatively separate, but are informed by the other ones. So they're informed by the information, but as I said, they make their own recommendation, and then there is a decision maker, president and provost, something like that.
Thanks, Michael. Do we have any questions from downtown?
We do have one question, Brenda.
Okay.
Hi, this is LaDawn Haglund from Justice and Social Inquiry. I'm just wondering what was the impetus for who asked that the committee be eliminated? I hadn't heard of this before.
We sent the information out to all the senators. Did you get our attachment? It was.
I read the attachment and it didn't say who asked. It just said that they were asked. It was like third person.
By a faculty member, and so we didn't feel like the name of the person was as important as knowing that it did come from a faculty member. Right. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it didn't say faculty member. It just said third person. So fine, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from downtown?
Nope, it doesn't look like it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to Polytechnic.
Yes, we have a question.
Okay.
For Dr. Crow, with respect to research, are there any models moving us forward that could help us alleviate some of the financial burden with respect to paying tuition for graduate students that are hired as research associates? Did you have discussions with that in the past with the Board of Regents or the legislature and the governor?
So just a little point of history. So when I took office here, this was one of the very few research universities that did not support through tuition remission teaching assistants or research assistants. It was very uncompetitive against other schools. The first step that we took to fix that cost $44 million to the annual budget of the institution. And so that was not a minor adjustment in our overall cash flow. So we made that adjustment, and we now have thousands of graduate students whose tuition is paid. So you might say, well, just forget it, do what some people used to call a tuition remission. It's not there's no tuition remission. We still have to have resources to pay the tuition for students. And so there's thousands of graduate students who are on university graduate research assistantships and university graduate teaching assistantships. And then there are literally thousands more who are on graduate research assistantships paid for by grants. Those are allowed to be built into the grants. The tuition itself is a part of the grant funding process, not by every agency, but by nearly every agency. And so if you're going to ASU, it's quite a deal because you're not paying the Stanford tuition, which is charged to the grants, versus the ASU tuition for a graduate student. And so that's thousands. I don't know exactly how many. I do know that there's over 10,000 students receiving a check from ASU each semester. And that's a large number of students, and that's been going up dramatically. So there's thousands and thousands of graduate students getting their tuition costs covered, and there are thousands and thousands of graduate students who are not. And so I'm not sure exactly. The policies are policies set by us. They're university policies. There's no funding from the state resources that we receive come basically, for all intents and purposes, as a lump sum. They are not assigned to graduate students or research assistantships or something like that. There's not a budget that we submit to the state. There's a budget request that we submit to the state that's either accepted or not. And so the best way to move forward to get graduate students assisted is through resources available at the department level or the unit level. We now have many, many more graduate students now being paid, for instance, from revenue being generated by ASU Online, and there's many departments that have large numbers of students being financed from that revenue source. Or there are departmental research assistantships that can be requested beyond those that have been funded in the past, and then there are grant funding mechanisms. It's also possible for a faculty member or a group of faculty members to get internal resources for research planning, research initiatives, and so forth, from which graduate students can be financed. There aren't a lot of those grants, but there are some of those that are available. There's also indirect cost recovery dollars, which are available to faculty members that are generating research revenue, and then the faculty member is free and clear to spend those dollars on whatever they choose within the realm of the university's work. And so that's another funding source. Provost Searle, anything that you'd like to add to that? He's going to go to the microphone.
Just one, and that is that we charge a blended rate for the tuition, so we don't charge even the entire out-of-state tuition.
Right,
so.
to keep the cost low for the funding agency also. And so if there are specific needs that an individual faculty member has relative to the need for research assistantships, let's say, one should start with their department, obviously be thinking about grants, perhaps look out for the university programs, perhaps advance an idea that the college or the university might be interested in, and then some dollars can sometimes be made available. Those are usually for periods of time. You'll get 2 years of support or 3 years of support, with the hope being that then you can generate external dollars. So those are not uncommon. I would suggest we have something on the order of 300 or 400 faculty members that have those kinds of resources available to them for windows of time, sort of in and out, depending on where they are in their process. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's the method.
Context of is the government aware of our efforts that we're doing to provide high-quality graduate education and move science and engineering and innovation forward? So my question was more, is there any positive wins in that direction from them that they can help the university? That was the context of, the point of my question.
Yes. So thank you. So the United States government, the national government, unequivocally, they are a massive investor in this university and other universities to the tunes of billions and billions and billions of dollars, and those dollars are only going up across all dimensions. The state government does not view us in that way. So the state government views us as a broadly scoped institution, and they want to invest in the instructional costs for in-state residents and leave the rest of the funding of the university in the same as a private university, leave the rest of the funding for the university up to us. And that's basically the mode that we're in at the moment. Now, that doesn't mean that at some point there wouldn't be a project that we could get them to invest in. About 10 years ago or so, we did get them to invest in 4 major research buildings on the Tempe campus and the Polytechnic campus. And so they did make that investment, and so that was something that they did on a one-time only capital investment perspective. But in terms of operating dollars for research, they do include the $7,500 a year that we're hoping to secure from them on a per-student basis for graduate students also, which allows us to maintain a graduate student tuition which is in the same range as our undergraduate student tuition, even though our graduate student costs in some programs are 4 times the cost of or 4 times the revenue derived from the tuition. And so if you're earning the master's degree in infant counseling in the School of Family and Social Dynamics, that's an expensive degree program for which the tuition costs might not cover those costs in their totality. So they are making an investment by investing in the students to lower their costs. They're not making investments in research projects and research positions per se.
Thank you.
One last question. You said that you want the state to, for graduate and undergraduates, be at $7,500. What is the current, what does the state currently give us per student? And is it different?
Right now, the state's investment on a per-student basis is south of $6,000 per student per year. It has been as high as just under $13,000 per student per year in 2007, in that range before the recession. After the deep cuts of the recession, this is a point that we've been trying to make, they lowered it down to the $9,500 range and the $8,500 range, and then continued to lower it, being one of the only states that did that, down below the $6,000 range. Now, of course, we've been growing the institution at the same time, and so it's not just their reductions in actual dollars, it's a reduction in dollars per student. And so we'd like to get to $7,500 per student per year for Arizona residents.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to West Campus. Do you have any questions?
Oh, our questions got answered just now.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Crow. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the chair's report. I attended the ABOR meeting April 6th through the 8th with Chris Kaselka, Helene Osipov, and Donna Cataldo. And again, as President Crow said, the board did approve the tuition and university fees. They also elected the student regent, Viana Carriaga from the University of Arizona. So he was approved, and he begins his term July 1st, 2016 for 2 years. And we're still awaiting the appointment of the new regent, who will replace Luann Leonard, who officially ends her term June 30th. So the new board officers were also elected, and their terms begin July 1. So Regent Greg Patterson will now be the chair of the board. Regent Bill Ridenour was elected as the vice chair, and Regent Jay Heiler was elected as treasurer, and Regent Ram Krishna was reelected secretary for the board, and student regent Jared Gorshi will serve as the assistant treasurer. Also, now I'd like to highlight our senator spotlight for April. So I'm pleased to announce our April recipient is Dr., and I hope I don't slaughter your name, Andrew Siskronow. Is that correct or close? From the School of Mathematical and Statistical Science at the Tempe campus. So this is his second year on the Senate, and he's been at ASU for 14 years. So he served on the Committee on Committee to assist us in recruiting faculty and academic professionals to run for office. So when asked, why did you decide to get involved with the Senate, he said that he was elected by his colleagues and thought that serving on the Senate would give him a chance to learn about the university operations. He also wanted to find out more about challenges that ASU has to confront. When asked, what would you say to your peers who might be considering accepting a nomination or nominating themselves for a position on the Senate? He said, serving on the Senate gives an excellent opportunity to learn about university policies and its operations. And in addition, the Senate is a perfect place to discuss important issues which impact ASU students, faculty, and the rest of the university community. So please help me in congratulating Andrew. So I just wanted to share a few highlights of 2015-2016. So this academic year I've had the pleasure to go to 18 different schools or colleges to talk about the importance of shared governance and how important it is and what our purpose is here as a Senate. And so I would like to really encourage everyone to continue with their current involvement or to become involved in shared governance at ASU. So we have passed the motion and are awaiting final approval from administration regarding the Research and Creative Activities Committee becoming a Senate standing committee. Also, we were not able to resolve the I-course issue regarding how many courses a first-time, full-time freshman would be able to take, but this discussion is ongoing with administration. And also in solidarity with the 2 other state universities, we passed a resolution in support of transgendered faculty and staff receiving health plan benefits. And we have approved as a UAC committee and personnel committee to send a recommendation to administration regarding a removal of the sentence from the outside review letter stating that the candidate be granted tenure at your institution. And so we're still awaiting feedback from administration. And so if you go to the Senate webpage under motions, you can see the status of all the motions from this academic year. All final standing committee annual reports will be posted to the Senate webpage, hopefully by the end of the week. We still have a couple more we need to finalize. The Senate annual report will be completed this summer and posted to the Senate webpage. Also, we've had 50 requests for consultations on our list this academic year. Some were from carryovers from 14-15. 38 have been worked on this academic year, and we still have 12 open items. And a reminder that from the period of May 16th to August 15th annually, the UAC shall have the authority to act on behalf of the Senate and to carry out necessary Senate duties during the period of time in which faculty are not on contract. The Senate President shall report on any such activities at the first Senate meeting following the summer break. So that concludes my report, and now we'll move to new business unless anyone has some questions. Seeing none here at Tempe. Anybody from downtown?
No questions downtown, Brenda. Thank you.
Okay. Polly?
We do not have any questions at Polly, thank you.
Okay, and West?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Now we'll move to new business, and Chair of CAPC, Steve Simkin, will come forward with several motions from CAPC.
Good afternoon. We have 8 curricular motions that will be voted on by CAPC at its regular meeting, which is the final meeting of this academic year, this coming Thursday, 28 April at 10:45 a.m. in Interdisciplinary B, Room 365. First, we have Senate Motion 2016-58, request from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, the School of Life Sciences, for the establishment of a graduate certificate in environmental communication and leadership. Next is Senate Motion 2016-59, request from the College of Nursing and Health Innovation for the name change of an undergraduate degree from BS in Healthcare Innovation to BS in Health Innovation. Senate Motion 2016-60, request from the College of Public Service and Community Solutions, School of Criminology and Criminal Justice, for the name change of an undergraduate degree from BS in Criminal Justice and Criminology to BS in Criminology and Criminal Justice. Senate Motion 2016-61, request from the new College of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences, the School of Humanities, Arts, and Cultural Studies, for the disestablishment of an undergraduate degree, the BA in American Studies. Senate Motion 2016-62, request from the new College of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences, the School of Humanities, Arts, and Cultural Studies, for the disestablishment of an undergraduate degree, BA in Ethnicity, Race, and First Nation Studies. Senate Motion 2016-63, request from the new College of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences, School of Humanities, Arts, and Cultural Studies, for the disestablishment of an undergraduate degree, BA in Women and Gender Studies. Senate Motion 2016-64, a request from the new College of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences, School of Mathematical and Natural Sciences, for the name change of an undergraduate degree from BS in Forensics to BS in Forensic Science. And finally, Senate Motion 2016-65, request from the College of Health Solutions, Department of Speech and Hearing Science, for the establishment of an undergraduate certificate in Communication Sciences and Disorders. We also have several CAPC information items in Appendix A. Any feedback or questions that you might have for CAPC should be sent to me at semkin@asu.edu. Please put CAPC in the subject line of all emails for a faster response. Thank you.
And just a reminder, this was first reading, and the actual vote will occur at the August 2016 meeting. So now we'll begin our old business with the consent agenda. So the new course proposal consent agenda went out April the 11th. And so I need to ask if anyone needs anything removed from the consent agenda. Okay, seeing no requests, then I will call for the vote. So all those in favor? Yes. All those opposed? No. And anyone that abstains? Okay, if we could go ahead and call for the vote. Looks like 74 yes, 0 no, and we've got that abstainer out there. So, okay, so continuing with our old business again, since these are being presented by committee, we don't need a second. So would anyone like to remove any of the items from the agenda? Okay, again, seeing none, we're going to treat this as a consent agenda rather than have Steve read all of the motions again because we read them at the last meeting. Okay, yep. So if we could go ahead and call for the vote. Yes, no, or abstain. Who's going to be the abstainer? Are we ready? Hey, 72 yes, 0 no. It looks like 5 abstain. So I'm going to miss those abstainers. Okay, so it looks like the motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move to committee reports. We're moving right along. So Oscar is ill, so he's not going to be able to give a wrap-up of his committee report, but it will be posted on the Senate webpage, hopefully by the end of the week. So we'll move on to the Student Faculty Policy Committee. So Keith, if you could come forward.
So the Student Faculty Policy Committee was just a little bit busy this semester, or this year. We had 16 requests for consultation. We closed 10 of them. 3 of them are in the implementation stage, and 3 remain open. The open motions include working with GPSA and USG on issues that they brought to us that they're looking for faculty involvement in committees for. The Students for Sensible Drug Policy, who addressed the committee, the Senate in the last Senate meeting. And an inquiry about animal testing, which we are working with the student group to resolve at the moment. We did determine that their concern is already addressed, so we just need to work with the students to inform them of that. We had 3 motions brought to the Senate. 2 passed, 1 did not. The motions were in support of our athletes, our students and student organizations who are going to club activities, also for graduate and undergraduate students who are attending conferences, and for military, veterans, and first responders. So the Student Faculty Policy Committee has worked with a wide range of administrators and students over the past year, and I feel it's been a very successful year for us, and I really want to congratulate the people who have served on that committee. It's been very, very helpful for us. And thank you very much.
Okay, moving right along. So I think Greg Stone is going to report for the Research and Creative Activities Committee. Oh, did I skip you?
Hi. Hi, I'm Greg Stone, and I'm standing in for Arnie today, who wasn't able to make it. And we considered 3 issues this year. The first that you're probably familiar with was the status of the RCA committee. And we've been operating as a university committee, and we are now pending approval of the administration be acting as a standing Senate committee. Mostly our discussion was concerned with the fact that there were going to be 2 subcommittees that were separated, one on classified research and one on research misconduct. Those will now be university committees. And the reason for this apparently had to do with compliance with external regulations. Our committee agreed to go forward when we were assured that the way that those committees operate will remain unchanged. The second issue that we dealt with was the question of reproducibility of research. There's been a lot of attention recently to the question of to what extent does scientific research reproduce when one tries conducting experiments again. There was a report in Science last fall that drew a lot of attention and publicity, including a lot of coverage in the popular press. And so it's for this reason that OCAD asked us to look into the issue. By the way, I was the chair of that subcommittee. What we did in the report was we provided information for anyone interested in what the nature of the problem is, talking about whether or not something has replicated more complex than just was p less than 0.05. We tried to sort of detail that. And the second part of the report focused on the fact that there are actually a lot of resources now being provided for scientists to take advantage of in order to try to correct some of these problems. And so we provided information about that. And then finally, we talked a little bit about the role played by various agents in the process. So that would include funding agencies, journals, professional organizations, and of course the universities. This preliminary report was meant to be informational, and so if OCAD asks, we will provide a more detailed recommendation regarding action by ASU, but at this point, it's only meant to be informational. And then finally, we went back to a topic involving the archiving of research records, and RCA put together a task force a little while ago and generated a report on that. And one of the main things that were recommended was that the university appoint a chief data officer at the university level. OCAD found the report useful but asked for additional clarification. And so we are waiting now to give a report to a research directors at ASU, but it hasn't been scheduled yet. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Oh, it looks like I skipped over the Committee on Committees report, so Chris, if you would give us an update.
Good afternoon. Faculty and academic professionals have several opportunities throughout the year to be part of university service through the University Senate and or the university by serving on committees or running for elected office. The work of the Committee on Committees began last August with staffing the University Senate standing committees. More senators volunteered than the vacancies available on the Personnel, University Services and Facilities, and Faculty, Student Faculty Policy Committees, as well as the Committee on Committees. A major portion of our work as a committee involves the academic assembly elections. Faculty and APs are nominated for campus president-elect as well as the grievance committees. One item is that it has been increasingly difficult to obtain enough candidates to run for the campus president or grievance committees. And so this is where your networks and you're working with your colleagues to nominate them to run is vital for future elections. Those who step forward this year to run in our elections is greatly appreciated. On this note of elections, they concluded last week, and the results will be announced to the Senate later on this week. Thanks to everyone who stood for election, and thanks to all of you who voted. So we have one remaining task, and that is to recruit faculty and academic professionals for additional service opportunities. This is on the provost roster of boards, committees, and councils. So you'll be receiving a survey this week, and you will have the opportunity to volunteer for these opportunities at the university level. So I'd like to wrap this up by thanking the committee members for their outstanding work this year, and to wish you all a great summer. Thank you for the opportunity to serve.
And Steve, if you give us a wrap-up of CAPSI.
Everybody sees me up here twice every meeting, so I'll keep this rather brief. But the 16 members of your Curriculum and Academic Programs Committee have been very busy this year. We convened 8 meetings. One thing to point out is the meeting originally scheduled for October 29th. We failed to meet a quorum, but the members graciously rescheduled for November 19th, 2015, and the pending business was successfully transacted. With our last meeting coming up this Thursday, pending the outcome of that, the committee will have reviewed 99 curricular proposals, which institutional memory suggests is the largest number that CAPSI has ever reviewed. During fall 2015, CAPSI reviewed 34 proposals over 4 meetings. And during spring 2016, we will have reviewed 65 proposals over 4 meetings. As of today, 89 of the proposals already reviewed were approved, 0 were denied, and 1 was withdrawn by its proposers. I also point out that I want to, first of all, again, acknowledge the dedicated work of the committee members, and also to thank the many proposers who have submitted such exemplary curriculum proposals and who have come to our meetings to defend them if necessary. Also, I especially want to point out that the enthusiastic and dedicated work of Senior Program Coordinator Phyllis Lucy, assisted for a time by Lauren Leo until her move to Ed Plus on October 2015, has been absolutely indispensable to the smooth functioning of this committee. And I do also want to point out that Ms. Lucy is already working under emeritus status, and for 7 out of the 8 meetings this year, she had no administrative support at all, let alone a successor to train. So the committee strongly encourages the University Senate to be mindful of this protracted vacancy in staffing and take the needed steps to remedy it in the coming academic year. Thank you very much.
Okay, Martin, if you'd report on the University Senate and Facilities Committee.
Hello, my name is Martin Matustik. I am ASU West Senate President. I would have never chosen to work on this committee. It was available and it became very interesting work. I have learned more about university buildings, roads, hazardous waste, bike lanes, parking than I knew there would be to learn. And we ran a big survey. That survey has resulted in a 19-page report that I believe Chuck has already posted. My committee has been so efficient that we have made a final report, final results of the survey, and we are done with the work for the committee that will be there next year. So go and look at the results. Some of it is very interesting. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. And Rita, would you speak to the Library Liaison Committee?
Sure. I'm Teresa Folger, Library Liaison Committee Chair. This year, we did a lot of work getting to know the current library status and the needs, as there is an upcoming remodel and renovation to Hayden, and probably some of the systems surrounding the library that interact with Hayden. We had an open request for consultation for open access policy in the university. And upon investigation of that, we decided to push it back to the Senate, only because we felt like, as the library group, it needed representation on a possibly adjunct committee of UTO, promotion and tenure, as well as library and any other systems involved with open access policies in our university. So, I think both of those activities will continue next year, and we look forward to helping out.
Thank you, Teresa. And Kathleen, if you'd come forward and talk about the Governance Clearinghouse.
Good afternoon. The chair of CAFT is also the chair of the Grievance Clearinghouse Committee. During AY 2015-2016, the Grievance Clearinghouse Committee received 8 cases filed by 7 grievance and assigned 5 cases to the Committee on Academic Freedom and Tenure. Of these cases, 1 went to hearing, 2 were dismissed after pre-hearings, and 2 were dismissed due to no grievable issues and/or available remedy, as stated in the individual's grievance services request, or the GSR form. Regarding the case that went to hearing, CAFT recommended a re-review, which was upheld by the President. Our recommendations to the Senate are the following. ACD 50901 and ACD 50902 clearly define the role of the University Ombudsman and clearly state that issues ineligible for ombudsperson's intervention include denial of tenure and dismissal for cause. These are the primary issues considered by CAFT during this academic year. There remains a need for faculty who are considering filing a grievance to receive informal assistance by someone familiar with ACD and ABOR policies, to frame a clear and concise grievance services request, including considerations of issues where CAFT would have jurisdiction. Thank you.
And Donna, from downtown, if you would give us an update on what's happening with the learning management system.
Certainly. Hi, this is Donna. Just this morning, there is a live link that will provide all faculty the opportunity to kind of see what the plan is for looking at the learning management system review, and I can forward that to you, Brenda, if that's all right. And basically what it does is, or I can provide it for you now, either way, it just kind of gives more clarity over the 2 different learning management systems that are under consideration, one being Blackboard, which we currently are using. The other one is Canvas. And it just, the idea is that, it gives us more flexibility, helps us to, be more cloud-based, so that way when there are updates, be less concern for faculty and staff. There's the timeline is posted as well, but we're really looking at summer right now to start to look at course enrollment management, and that's part of what we talked about, I think, a while ago, about kind of the stakeholders group, which is faculty who are interested in maybe looking at participating in Canvas as an opportunity to kind of see how that learning management system works. They're really only, the timeline really is only such that a decision, and the decision may well be that we just stay with Blackboard. And even if we do stay with Blackboard, it will look different. So as I was kind of mentioning before, change is coming, even if we stay with Blackboard. But they'll only really decide summer 2018 as to whether we change from Blackboard or to Canvas. So there is time. And for those individuals that are still interested in maybe becoming stakeholders and seeing what the difference is between, say, Blackboard or Canvas, so they can have greater input to the contribution and decision for change, that option is still certainly open. But otherwise, like I said, there is an active link that we can all access to give us kind of insight to the timeline, what are some of the resources, and opportunities to kind of try out the different systems as they change. And that will continue to expand and grow as they develop it. That's pretty much all I have for now.
Thanks, Donna, and we'll make sure that that live link is available to everyone.
Thank you.
And Kristen, if you would give us an update on transfer matters.
Yes. Hi, this is Kristen Hoffner from the School of Nutrition and Health Promotion. I was the committee chair for one of the 9 Dimension committees in the Transfer Matters Initiative. We actually just rounded out our year-long process in which we've been working on this. Just to refresh everybody's memory, you've only heard about it once from me. this year at Senate. Transfer Matters was an initiative here, or is currently, that was prompted to study all aspects of the transfer student experience and to produce a plan for institutional improvement leading to higher levels of transfer student learning, satisfaction, and graduation. So for those of you that aren't aware, we did the same sort of program or process with the first year experience for first year freshmen a few years ago, or maybe it was last year. So now we are taking it on with transfer students. So just to give you guys a little bit of some insight on what each of the Dimension committees did, mine specifically was targeted towards strategies for faculty in interacting with and working with transfer students. There were, as I stated, 8 other Dimension committees. Each of the committees did an assessment of current practices at ASU. We looked at both quantitative and qualitative data to assess kind of what faculty members were feeling or other staff members or students about the current practices. And then that data led us to develop a set of suggestions and strategies for what we propose to be done in the future. We also rated ASU and our specific dimension with a grade. We actually had to give an A through F grade for what the status was at this point based on what our committee voted upon. And then our final reports were due today, and they listed the strategies along with the other information I just provided and some recommendations for reward and recognition for faculty or staff that involve themselves in this movement in the future. So I just finished our report and submitted it today, so we are happy to see what comes from all of this work.
Thanks, Kristen.
Yep.
And then our last report is Bob St. Louis. If you would come and give us an update on what's happening with the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College Dean search.
Hello. My name is Bob St. Louis, and I was asked to serve on the search committee for the Mary Lou Fulton Dean. It was a large committee at 12 persons, 6 faculty members from the College of Education, 2 representatives from outside the university, 1 from the Greater Phoenix Leadership Council and another from the Rodell Foundation, 3 university representatives, the Vice Provost for Undergraduate Education, the Vice Provost for Educational Outreach, the Senior Vice Provost for Educational Outreach, and 1 representative from the Academic Senate. The work was actually, well, they hired Isaacson Miller to do the contacting. And they worked, I think, very hard to try to get as many qualified people as possible into the applicant pool. That they contacted 385 persons. They talked to 224 persons. 49 people were interested in the position. 8 people were invited to campus for a visit. 4 declined and 4 came. I shouldn't say that. It was 4, they were invited to come for sort of a secret interview before people knew who had applied. And then 2 came to campus for visits. Carol Bastille, who's the Dean of the College of Education at the University of Missouri, St. Louis, and Luis Vasquez, who's the Associate Vice President for Research Integrity at New Mexico State. The last visitor just came last Thursday, and so as of right now, I don't think anyone knows what the result's going to be, but the result should be, I would think, announced reasonably soon.
Okay, now comes that point for open forum. Does anyone have anything that they would like to, any questions or comments?
I was asked by many of my colleagues teaching online courses to bring up an issue regarding ASU Online, and the issue is that the students are not required photos, so the roster photo is empty for online students, and of course this creates a challenge in trying to prevent cheating. If one Googles take my online course for me, there are plenty of online cheating sites advertising they can beat any system and take a whole course for a fee. Now for the proctor test, we use a remote proctoring service which monitors the students through a webcam. But of course that is useless if we cannot be sure whether the individual taking the test is the student, is indeed a student and not some paid ringer. So having pictures, official ASU pictures of the students, I think would be the first step in trying to prevent cheating.
Thank you. That sounds like something we need to forward to the Student Faculty Policy Committee. Oh, yeah. Oh, you have a response that you can share with us?
I'm surprised to hear that, to be honest, because they are supposed to all have IDs. So we will take that up and pursue that. Not supposed to. I didn't say they did. I said they are supposed to.
Right.
So what I'm telling you is I'm going to take it up and find out what's going on.
I have a response also. On the edX courses, there is a verification system that ASU is already using. Why can't we use that system? And it's worldwide for all the students who go to register in edX for credit.
Provost Cyril's going to check into it.
Because it's a proprietary product of edX. And what we need them to do is have an actual ASU ID that we have in our system, not edX's system.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, my name's Dan McCarville, and I teach a lot of online classes as well. And I recognize this is a real problem. I've been requesting. I send out emails months before the class starts requiring all students to have an ASU ID or they can't take the exams. That helps, but I still have to go through that process with all of the online undergraduates as well as the online masters. A lot of them still don't get them. So I appreciate the provost's help with this. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Anyone else have anything for the good of the order? Okay.
Bob St. Louis from the College of Business. Last meeting, Kevin Salcedo came and talked about eliminating the ASRS, and I talked to our faculty about it, and that seemed to be a very popular system for a lot of our clinical faculty members. And so that they asked if we could ask him to come back and sort of say what the difference would be in the annuities of somebody who stayed with ASRS and somebody who actually went with TIAA-CREF, because when they calculate it, it comes out to be not just a little bit higher, but 75 to 100% higher in terms of what the annuities that comes as a result of being in the ASRS as opposed to staying with the optional retirement system. And so it was just a request, if possible, to have him come back and try to give a little bit more information about what the impact would be for people at various salary levels within the university.
Yes, we can definitely ask him to possibly come to the August meeting, but definitely ask him to return. Okay, anything for the good of the order at downtown?
Doesn't look like there's anything downtown. Thank you.
Polly?
No, nothing at Polly, thank you.
Okay, West?
Nothing at West. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda, for doing a great job.
Thank you. So now comes to that part of the meeting where it's the passing of the gavel. So I'd like to thank everyone for making my year as University Senate President and Chair of the UAC a successful one. I've enjoyed serving in this role and will miss everyone. I know others will also be rotating off the Senate either due to your term being completed or retirement. I want to thank everyone for all your hard work in making this one of the best shared governances at any institution in the country. So please continue doing the great work. I will officially leave the Senate office May 31st. So now I would like to introduce my successor. So again, I especially want to thank everyone who has served on committees, the executive committee, the Senate office staff, Chuck and Pam, and most of all, the senators who make this a rewarding experience. So now, thank you. So now I'd like to introduce you to Kathleen Puckett, who is your new University Senate President and UAC Chair. Dr. Puckett is an Associate Professor of Special Education in the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College, based at the Polytechnic campus, but she works at all the 4 campuses. So this past year, she has represented the Polytechnic campus as past president on the UAC. She's also been serving as the president-elect of the University Senate since December. Kathleen has been very involved in shared governance at the university. She has served as the chair of the CAPC committee in 2014-15, and also as the chair of the Committee on Academic Freedom and Tenure during the 15-16 academic year. So please help me in welcoming your new University Senate President and Chair of UAC for 2016-2017 with her term beginning June 1st.
But don't go away, Brenda. On behalf of the Faculty Senate and the UAC, I want to express our gratitude for a job well done. Your very steady hand and your efficient manner are greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
And you've served as a model for me and for those who will lead the Senate in the future.
Thank you.
You're a tough act to follow. And we have this plaque for you.
Oh, great.
To Brenda Housley, PhD, RN, CNE. President of the University Senate and Chair of the UAC 2015-2016, in gratitude for advancing shared governance at Arizona State University through your insightful leadership of the University Senate and the University Academic Council. And we have a quote from Barack Obama, our president: "Our stories may be singular, but our destination is shared."
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So again, it's been my pleasure to serve you all this academic year, and I wish everybody a wonderful summer and a great year next year. So my last official duty at this meeting is to turn the gavel over to Kathleen and ask her to close the meeting.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Adjourn. See you in the fall.